Assalamu alaikum, good evening. Thank you for joining us for this fifth week, but 10th episode in this pre-Ramadan series, The Importance of the Muslim Family. This week we are doing legacy, and since it's Friday, we are going to be joined by some amazing women folk who are doing some real legacy things. And so Ayub is finishing prayer right now, so I'm going to chat with you for just a moment to give him some time to get here. But to kind of recap what we've done so far, we did oneself, then we went into marriage, and then parenting, community, and now this week is legacy. And so when we sat down to come up with this series, we just kind of we thought through kind of the steps of life, the phases of life, starting off with the importance of doing self-work, maintaining yourself, building yourself, preparing yourself. And a lot of people skip that part and jump into the marriage part. So we wanted to make sure we did the oneself first. And we had some amazing men and women on for those conversations. And then we went into parenting. And so we had some parents that's just in our community groups, as well as some people that do a kind of official parenting work join us. And then for marriage, we had therapists join us. We had folks that's been married. I think when we tallied it up, all the married folk are collectively about 100 years or so when we added all the years together. So those conversations were really amazing. And then last week when we did community, we talked with one brother who started community 40 years ago, and their community is now working on a multi-million-dollar 10-story structure. So they're doing well. And the other brother's community is very new, but they are feeding people and starting gardens and just doing so many amazing things. And the women that we spoke with last week, one was a part of starting the community. The other one inherited her community, and they're both doing amazing things. And so please go back and look at those, watch those videos and follow those people, support the work that they're doing. Everybody is just doing such amazing things. And here is my guy. He's ready to join us.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Are you back from a long day of tennis, I believe? Yeah, a little tired, but we're going to make this work. So tonight, we are doing legacy with three, I don't know how to describe them, three amazing women, three women that do very different things, but still very similar in the impact and the building and the work. And so I'm ready to bring them on. You had anything you want to say before we bring these sisters on?
Welcome, everyone.
Okay, so the first to come to the stage is our sister, Dr. Noor Jahan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I think you're on mute still.
Me and the mute and these kids. Well, walaikum assalam. Thank you all so much for having me.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, we actually had her husband, who is Ayub's brother, on for the Monday show. We were talking about legacy with our men folk. And so because they do so much work together, it just felt fitting to bring her on as well to get the other or another point of view of it. And then Masood aside, she just does dope things.
Right.
We were like, we got to have Jahan on for something.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So we also have Sister Asiya. Yep, you're on.
Okay.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
You're doing great. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. And I see Sister Jamila has joined us. I'm going to bring you on in. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Doing great. Alhamdulillah. How are you doing?
Awesome.
Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us. So I have only one of your official bios. So I'm gonna use that one and then ask the other two to introduce yourselves in a more, kind of share with the audience the work that you do. Like, not to toot your own horn necessarily, but kind of, why would somebody invite you on a conversation about legacy? So the one I have is for Dr. Noor Jahan. I'm gonna go on and read that. And all right, so Dr. Noor Jahan Abdul-Haq is a board-certified pediatrician from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She is a proud graduate of Spelman College with honors with a degree in biochemistry. Her medical school and residency training were completed through Morehouse School of Medicine, where she was active with various medical organizations. She has done medical work in Barbados, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. Her awards include the Leonard Toe Humanism in Medicine Award, Practitioner of Excellence Award from Sisters United Organization, Journal Records Achievers Achievers Under 40 Award, and Outstanding Minority Business Leader. Okay. Most recently,
I can just go past all that.
a lot of stuff. Okay. Most recently, she was named a top Oklahoma healthcare hero by the Journal Record. Dr. Abdul Haq has been interviewed numerous times on local radio, TV, and print media. Dr. Abdul Haq opened her current practice, Peace of Mind Pediatrics, in September of 2015 to serve the community that she grew up in. She will be opening a second location in spring 2021, that's soon. She serves as a mentor for high school and college students. And in September 2020, she helped open the Clara Community Health Center in OKC, which is a free clinic for the uninsured. She is a member of Masjid Movement in Oklahoma City, and she and her loving husband are the proud parents to 3 wonderful children.
Yay.
That's everything. Uh-oh, we lost her. I think she hopped out. She hopped out.
She didn't want to. She didn't want to
She was
take.
like, that's too much accolades.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. So that was Dr. Abdul Haq. And Sister Asia, if you could tell us a bit. I'm sorry I didn't follow up to make sure I had your bio, but if you could share some of the work that you're doing next.
Well, about 10 years ago, I started my nonprofit organization called Jessica Cares, which is a female empowerment platform for young girls like preteens and women as well. We expanded that program about 4 or 5 years ago to now start working with women as well. And the female empowerment platform, the Jessica, when you see Jessica Cares, is actually an acronym, and it is to, it embodies, actually the acronyms embodies everything that we want our young girls and our women to feel when they participate in our program. And that stands for Journey to Becoming an Extraordinarily Strong, Successful Individual with Courageous Aspirations. Okay. And so we host, various workshops, series, entrepreneurial series, vocational masterclasses, authors masterclass. So now we have about 4 or 5 students who are actually self-published authors. We do personal development programs, which is really getting to the root of where low self-esteem is coming from, that low sense of self-worth. We do community involvement, making sure that the girls understand that you might think that your situation is bad, but when we go out and we help in the hospitals and feeding the hungry and coat drives, they get to see that they truly are blessed. Yeah. And so this, so that's, we have our annual retreats. And like I mentioned before, that was 10 years ago. So this past November made 10 years that Jessica Cares has been in existence. And we started, yes, alhamdulillah, we started in Jersey, but we've expanded to New York, Philadelphia, Delaware. We've done retreats in California, Texas, North Carolina, and now we're in Cleveland, Ohio. So Allah has truly, blessed our organization. And outside of that, I run a for-profit business that it's basically a consulting firm where we help entrepreneurs, but with a niche or like a specialty in working with nonprofit founders. And so we really help them to be able to build a strong foundation. So that way, inshallah, they can say, I've been here from 10 years to 15 years, inshallah, and build that legacy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I knew that you had been doing this for a while, but I didn't realize that's a whole decade.
Yes, a whole decade, yes.
All right, and then Sister Jamila, if you could tell us about the work that you do.
Okay, I am Jamila Shakir. I am the founder of the nonprofit Camp Butterfly Girls International, and our mission is to help improve the life of girls worldwide. And we do that by providing coping skills and life skills to girls ages 7 to 14. We recently launched our online Rites of Passage program, which helps girls in terms of really understanding their changing body and emotions through puberty. And I am also the founder of the for-profit Sacred Health Movement. And what we do is we make health and wellness affordable and available to marginalized communities. And we do this by making yoga, meditation, and coping strategies by providing these services. We have an array of programs that we offer in terms of really supporting people in terms of improving their emotional and mental health, and and really like helping to create a sense of community, especially now during COVID. We do offer retreats through both organizations. We right now are doing virtual retreats, but also we offer retreats worldwide, and we've hosted retreats worldwide through both organizations.
That's amazing.
Don't do that.
I mean, you think you know what people do, but it's
Right.
I hear like a tapping sound. I don't know what that is.
That's part of what I was doing. I was trying to see if that was maybe coming from something I had going on, but it doesn't seem to be.
It sounds like someone's typing. That's what it sounds like. Like when you're typing, that's what it sounds like.
It's gone now. Okay. Yeah.
And Jahan is ready.
Yeah.
So Jahan is back. Let's bring her back.
Yay! She's on mute.
Sorry, assalamualaikum. No, my
Sorry.
Wi-Fi just dropped.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. All right.
Is that weird noise for me?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
We just finished with everybody just introducing what they do, the work that they do. And so kind of for the first thing that we wanted to talk about is the topic. Like, it's difficult to have a discussion about something without defining it, right? So I wanted to know, like, how would you define legacy? Like, when you think about that word, like, even when we asked you to come on, like, what were your thoughts about it? Like, the work that you do or things you have that you're planning to do. How do you think of legacy? So I guess Jahan, since you just came back in, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. On my technical difficulty. So when I think of legacy, for me, I come from a family that is very fortunate that we're able to pull back and look at a lot of things our ancestors did, right? So when I think of legacy, I don't necessarily always think of myself. I think more of like continuing the legacy of my ancestors. So for us, that's a huge deal. And it's like, we've always been asked the question kind of like, well, what is your impact for the world? Like, this is so-and-so's impact, so-and-so's. So what are you going to do next? It really was never a question of, is there, like, there's really not that option to not do that, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So alhamdulillah, like, my grandfather is 99 years old. My mother's father and my father's mother, she just passed at 100. And so, it was like, well, this is what we've done, so what's going to shift? So for me, it's really about what you are going to leave behind, but also what are you carrying forward so that those that have come before us are also not left behind. So that's, when I think of legacy, that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of.
Yeah, I think I usually have very similar thoughts like that, what you're inheriting and what you're passing on. Yeah. Sister Asia?
When you asked me, I thought of I know we hear it all the time, and it sounds very cliche, but it's true. To whom much is given, much is required. And when I hear that to me is what legacy stands for. When we think of just from our parental standpoint, we're left with so many traditions and so many things that we follow and continue. And, years later, generations later, we're still incorporating those values and those, things that was passed on. And when I think of our spiritual lineage, more than anything, we're here still talking about, what the Sahabas did and what the Sahabiyas did and how it still impacts the community and the Ummah as a whole. And so for me, it was, Allah chose me to be Muslim. And so a form of gratitude is living up to the things that were left behind, the gems, the life lessons, and then passing that on by not just sharing their stories, but embodying those stories in my own life. And how can I help the Ummah? How can I help my neighbors? How can I, grow in my Iman? So that way on the day of judgment, for me, that is what is going to be, my book of deeds is my legacy. inshallah, whatever I've left behind for my children, for the community, for the ummah, hoping that any good deeds that they have, that they do, that inshallah I get a portion of that reward. That's a legacy. When you see people, when you're long gone and they still remember you by name, they still remember the things that you said, they still remember how you made them feel. That to me that's what I think of when I hear legacy.
Yeah, that's interesting. The historical part. I think a lot of times when we talk about legacy or think of legacy, we usually think of ourselves and what's happening moving forward. But it is that line of stuff. Like even with our daughters, we have some family land on both sides, and the land on his side is a bit older than my side. When is that land purchased? The 40s, maybe. Right. That's been maintained, passed through the generations, kind of thing. And so whenever we go there, we tell the girls, like, when your great-great-grandparents bought this, they thought of you. Like they literally, because they couldn't have not. Like you don't come out of what our people were coming out of in the 20s and 30s and buy land in the 40s during all that was going on in the 40s and not think about your great-grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and just the responsibility of that. Like it can't fall on our watch. This has to keep going and move forward. Okay, I think Jamila is back. I'm going to try and bring her back in now. Okay, I think it's good.
Okay.
Oh no,
how's the sound? Again.
I can hear you, but there's definitely something else.
I'm wondering if I should go out and come back in.
Okay, you mean like to leave the broadcast?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe try that, and then we'll bring you back in. Thank you.
That's where the tapping sound is coming from.
I don't know if y'all noticed, but you were going on and off of mute because we were trying to figure it out.
Right.
I saw that, and then I was like, "It's still there." I was like, "Okay, I'm not sure."
Right.
But it's interesting that you guys were talking about your family land, because that's similar to my family. We have land, but it's from like the 1800s, post-slavery.
That old that I know of.
Right, and so it might have been like early, like 1907 or something. It was very, very early on when they bought the land, and so when we go back to that and my children see it, we don't. I mean, it's not even to my mother yet. I mean, we're not. Well, part of it, another part is, but we're talking like greats. Who bought this land out. Sharecroppers, and that's what they did. They worked the land. And so it's very interesting to go back to see it, because we show our children, we're like, look how many acres this is. These people worked this land. They weren't slaves. This was their land that they worked to grow cotton or grow soybeans or whatever they were growing to feed their families and to take care of their children, to send my grandfather to college, which was unheard of, and so you want them to see these things. But I love how, Sister Asia, we always try to pull in stories of the Sahabas, and I add my own family stuff in it too, mixing it in with these stories of, okay, well, you see this open space, people were able to do things, but also look at the, Rasulullah and with the Sahabas and how they, Masu was talking about it early today in the Juma Khutbah, just talking about, Medina. There was nothing. There weren't lights. They didn't have flashlights and lanterns and all these things. They didn't even have 4 walls. They had 3 walls.
Exactly. Yes.
But it helps them see it a little bit better, because they can see, okay, well, this was our family and there's nothing there.
Right.
And except trees. And, they made something happen. It's really interesting to see how you can kind of tie in those different things.
Absolutely. Like for me, my parents, they weren't born here in the States. My parents, I'm Afro-Latina. So my father is from Costa Rica and my mother's from Panama. And so the lineage that they left, the history, the legacy that they left was they came to this country, did not speak the language, didn't understand the culture of the West. And they came here still with that courage that I want a better life. And as Dr. Jahan said, it had to be with the thought process of the generations after. It was like, I want more for my family. I want more for my children. And so they came in spite of, which I know was fear, some fear, some apprehension. They're leaving everything that they know to come here for something better. And I always share that with my kids. It's like, you gotta push past the fear like your grandparents did, because they came here and didn't even speak the language. And look how they were able to, work and take care of their families and all of that. So yeah, you take those stories with you and you share that, and you try to infuse that in your family. Like we got to keep it going.
Yeah.
Pura vida.
¿Tú hablas español?
Sí, un poquito bastante.
I'm over here like, she do.
I guess it's Jamila.
Yeah. So we've been having a few technical difficulties, but let's see if can you unmute yourself and see if it's working now? Oh, did I mute you? I'm sorry.
I did. Is that good?
It's okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Is it clicking?
No.
Okay. All right. We're good. No, it is. What is happening?
I hear that.
I don't know what's happening. You don't know how to troubleshoot it? What, you know how to do it? Does anybody have headphones plugged in? Maybe my daughter said maybe headphones might make that noise.
I have headphones on.
I don't think, but you're not moving when nobody's moving. That doesn't apply.
No.
I would say maybe you should just speak, Sister Jamila. I think we can probably still hear you.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn my speaker up a little bit. Yes, so we were I know you were kind of going in and out, but we were just talking about how we define and think of legacy.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so when I think of legacy, the first thing that comes to mind for me was my parents, and how they were the first in the Atlanta area to start a Islamic community here, but also, in terms of them really changing their whole lives and accepting Islam, and what kind of courage that must have taken to change your entire life from going, because in the Nation of Islam, they would revolt alcoholics and drug addicts to be leaders. And so when I think about the legacy of that, it really means like making a sacrifice for your own self, for what's bigger, what's 5, 10, 15, 20 generations down, hundreds of years down the road, and how they can benefit from our actions today. And and it really I guess the crux of it is having values that we are committed to, and passing those values on generation to the next generation, and to not let that be weakened in any way. So to really be committed to the strength of what our values are.
Yeah. I feel like I've been talking more than you.
Nah, y'all are having a great conversation. I'm just a little sidebar, but alhamdulillah. I mean, I think that what all of y'all said is just that continuum. Understanding where you come from and being intentional about what you're doing, so that those who come after you can kind of carry things on. Especially like everybody mentioned, just the strength of Islam and the meaning of Islam and being a practicing Muslim. How important that is to us, and knowing that our parents sacrificed to be that, to establish that, and not wanting it to just be for nothing, essentially, because it's hard work, it's hard work. And like Ndola said, we don't want it to fall apart on our watch, you know what I mean? Exactly. So we want to do all we can to try to carry that on and strengthen it as well. Not just carry the load, but strengthen it and make it easier for the next generation to be able to practice this thing called Islam in the United States of America.
Yeah, I think that's something that Dr. Jahan, we talked with your husband about a lot, the whole staying in America versus going back to whatever place you have claimed as your motherland. And he's like, nah, this is where we are. our folk already made the sacrifice. Like, this is what we doing.
No, definitely. And it's important, and I, I understand both sides of it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. And obviously, you used to live in Senegal, so you guys, you really understand it. But I think that there's both are needed. We need people who can travel abroad and create opportunities for those who really need to leave. Yeah. And also we need those of us to stay here to make sure we own land and make sure that we own things that we're able to pass on. But really also making sure that we're investing in our, Islamic communities, because, if we don't start investing in them, we are losing them. And to be honest with you, our society just isn't as religious, period.
Yeah.
Whether it's Christianity, you name it, people just are like anti-religion right now. And so it's like, how do you basically live in a society in which it's no longer cool to have a religion? It's like anti-religion is the whole thing, but you have to make it, we have to protect souls, right? We have to protect the souls of our children and those around us, inshallah. And it's like, how do we kind of change with the times without compromising our Islam, without compromising our beliefs, but also making sure that we have a future that's going to continue carrying on the torch, such as Sister Jamila was saying, like her parents. I mean, for those of us who knew them, they really carried the torch. Everybody, had their, they had you all surrounded in Islamic, environment, and your children all went to, Muhammad schools or different, attended Atlanta Mosque and things like that. Like I noticed those things, right? I'm not, we outside, we're looking like, oh, that family has 3 generations, 4 generations, etc. And it's really powerful to see.
Yeah. It's amazing that you said that, because me and my husband just had this conversation, I think like last week. And it was before you called me to ask me to be on the show. And we literally had that conversation because I was like, with everything that's happening in the, here in the West, I was like, they offering dual citizenship, right, in Ghana. And so I was like, let's, why don't we jump on that? And he was like, no. He was like, he was born and raised here in a Jamaat here in Cleveland, where his father is still the imam. Over 50 years of history. He's like, I'm not going nowhere. He's like, because, my father is in his 70s. We got to keep this going. He was like, who's going to give dawah here? Who's going to keep, what we've been doing here in Cleveland all this time? So he was like, no, we not going nowhere. So I understood what he was saying. And I was like, it's true. And it was that legacy, leaving that legacy on for here and the children that don't necessarily have the same history. He has his children are 3rd generation Muslim. No. As Dr. Jahan just said, 3rd generation Muslims and strong. So he's like, no, we're not going nowhere. So, it's legacy really is impactful. And when you're part of that legacy, when you're part of a family, parents who actually did the work, and you're like Brother Ayub said, it's not going to fall on my watch. We're going to keep this going. So it's very important. And as I started, to whom much is given, much is required. You have to give that back and pay it forward for the next generation. As Jamila said, you got to make it easier for the next generation coming, or at least try.
Right.
Yeah, we're definitely trying. But Jamila, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that it is, really important, like when we look at building a legacy, to look at it as something like it is a divine right. It's not something that it's really not even an option, honestly, because we are like, how do you continue? Or are you where the ball stops? Are you the person where the buck will stop with you? So it's like we have to raise ourselves to a higher standard, even for it to be stronger and not just the same that it's been, but for it to be better than because our ancestors, they worked with less resources. we are in a position where we have a whole lot more resources. So what can we do with more resources that they did with nothing and under more harsh circumstances? So that pushes me.
Yeah.
And I, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just was saying that's just really important. You can go ahead.
And I think too, I think it's an honor. It really is an honor to be able to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this opportunity. And I remember when I first took Shahada 6.5 years ago, I remember my very first dua. I asked Allah, I said, Allah, I remember it was Maghrib prayer. And right after Maghrib Salah, I was in sujood and I said, Allah, just use me. I don't know in what capacity, but just use me. And it's an honor for Allah to find a position. When we listen to the stories of the Sahabas and we listen to the stories of our ancestors and, our parents, we feel like, oh my God, that was a time. And oh, if I was there, and, you feel like, wow, that was, something else. And when you get to be part of doing something like being a part of the Riyada and keeping that legacy going, when you're active in it, when you're active in doing something in your community, it's like I'm part of, Allah using me. So it's not even a burden. It really is a privilege and an honor to be able to say, Alhamdulillah, Allah is using me to leave a legacy for my children and for the community as a whole.
Yeah, that's very true. I know I've shared the story a few times, but I just kind of get excited by it. Like I'm really into like history and family history and stuff. And we found out that through Ayub's side of the family, they are descendant of William Still, the father of the Underground Railroad. And so before we found that out, Jalila had become just enamored with Harriet Tubman, like favorite person ever. She knows when she was born, when she passed away, the cities, just all this stuff. We went to this church in Savannah that was a part of the Underground Railroad, and we were able to see, where the enslaved people hid, and we saw the Arabic calligraphy that had been carved into the pews that looked like wood grain and all this stuff, right? And so when we found that out, she just
I think they froze.
Have you been to that church in Savannah?
No, I haven't been. I have not been.
It's
So that's why I'm so fascinated. I'm listening to her and I'm like, wow.
Yes, no,
That's
it's really neat. It has you feel like you understand the Underground Railroad quite a bit better. I guess it's so weird, all the technical difficulties. Like every night, everybody's on, and then tonight is
that's Shaitan. Shaitan don't want us to leave a legacy. That's what it is. He tried to mess this up.
No legacy for you.
Exactly. And y'all not even gonna talk about it.
I guess we're still on because
we are. We're still on. It's still going. So we can just keep this going.
No, I actually did a little bit of work in Costa Rica. So when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, but it was Dominical, like the very south area. But that history, we're talking about legacy and history, but for Black people who are ticos, Ticans, it was a struggle because they weren't allowed into San Jose until like the 1970s. And what a lot of people don't understand about Afro Latinos is that they had a real struggle. And so I always think that it's I did work in Dominican Republic as well. And you see this struggle and you read the history and things like that, and it's so important for us as Muslims. A lot of times we're like, oh, well, they're Latino, and it's like Afro Latinos had a similar struggle. They're the boats dropped off there as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, even just with identity, it was a struggle because for a long time, everybody just identified that if you was, a Latina, you had to look like the Jennifer Lopez's of the world. And it was like, no, I actually identify as Black, but I'm also, my culture is Latina. And that was very difficult to explain. In the 80s and in the 70s, it was very difficult to explain that and to be able to identify that way. So, it's really important. Oh, he said they had an outage. So it's really important. Yeah.
And as you say, in terms of identity too, is there's so many, and those of you who are Muslim, especially those of you from Panama, like there's quite I can name like 5 of you.
Right. A lot of people didn't, right.
Different cities.
Because everybody always asks me, you Dominican? And I'm like, no, not Dominican. So when I tell them, they're like, Panamanian, what? But and that's what makes also our legacy. So because in the Latin community, it's not, we have, different hair textures, different complexion, but we're all, Latin. And I'm like, to embrace that and to embrace everything that comes with that. We were also enslaved, and we also have ancestors who, and a lot of people don't understand that. And some of us don't even embrace that about ourselves. And so leaving that legacy of truth, leaving that legacy of this is our history and it's not something to be ashamed of, and this is who we are, that's also important too, in our communities, and really giving our children an identity and understanding who they are.
No, definitely. I think that it's hard though for some people, because when you do move from those countries, people haven't studied, so you can't escape.
Exactly.
You can act like it didn't happen, and if you when you study like the history of the Dominican Republic and how like the Haitians were treated, all of that, like
yes,
I mean that's a lot.
It was heavy.
It was heavy, and so it's kind of like when you get rid of it, some people.
We kept the host going.
Hey,
we gotta
appreciate
go.
Our computer started to update. We were like, no.
We've been laughing because I promise you, like I promise you all, like today has been such a test.
It's like he was saying like.
I said, Shaitan don't want us to talk about no legacy. He don't want us to leave no legacy. Shaitan is like, nah, I got to beat it.
You're like, I know it's charged. Right. I know I got Wi-Fi. And then it went boom. I said, oh.
And do you know today the same thing? I think all of us had it. My internet went out today. I had to call the internet connection. And I was like, look, I got somewhere to be virtually at 8:00. Y'all better get this thing working. So all of us had an issue today.
Alhamdulillah. Y'all kept it rolling.
Right. I'm glad that y'all didn't get cut off, because we're sitting here trying to message y'all and start the computer.
Alhamdulillah. Jamila's back. Alhamdulillah.
Right, we're all back. Everybody's back now. Lord have mercy. Woo! I'm gonna let y'all jump back into what y'all were saying, because I super lost my train of thought when we got cut off. I don't even know what I was saying.
We were talking about Afro-Latino legacy.
That's a part of legacy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were talking about. Afro-Latina legacy, and Dr. Jahan was the last one speaking. So
yeah.
Oh, I'm good. Sister Jamila, please join in.
I wanted to just rewind a little bit about the church in Savannah.
The
church that was built, I found out when I went on a tour there that it was built by Muslims and Christians. And they decided that they wanted a safe place, a house of worship. They made the bricks themselves and they built the church. They saved their money and they built that church together.
Alhamdulillah.
That's legacy.
Yes.
That's some legacy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've been there a few times. I did not know that though.
Yeah.
But my dad's parents were a part of the civil rights movement in Savannah. My dad is from there, and so we we go there frequently. And since Savannah has gotten their own civil rights museum, my grandmother is featured in the museum because of her role in the bus boycott that desegregated the bus system. And so my grandmother was 4'11" stretched out, tiny little woman, but she was
a powerhouse.
Yo, like I remember by 10, I was looking down at her, but wasn't nobody playing with grandma though. Right. And so I like to tell my girls the few stories that I remember, because I was definitely not one to sit at the feet of my elders as a little person. I was way too busy in the mud and on my bike. But as a teenager, I was fortunate to be able to spend my grandparents' last years with them. And so I do talk about them to my children, and I love taking them to Savannah to see the stuff that they did. There was a park that was dedicated to her after she passed away. And so we go to that park every time we go there and like have lunch and stuff like that. And just to remind them, like, they just did, I think that was Jamila saying, they did so much with so little. My grandfather was a very dark-skinned man. And because of the laws at the time, it wasn't legal for him to go to the beach. He lived in Savannah most of his life. He never saw the ocean until he was very old, right? Because at a certain point, it was just kind of like, it's just not something that I can do. And so, so even stuff like that, like on our youth side, there was beach property bought because Black folk couldn't go to the water. And so we take the girls there, like, just so much that got done for us. And so what are we doing for the next 4 generations down, for the next 5 generations down? We can't have the same fights, right? We can't have the same issues that we got going on. And so we, even the whole jazz thing, like that's a part of it, like just being a producer instead of just being a consumer. You know, what are you providing to people? Like what is your legacy right now at 8, but this is a part of it, you know? And so, yeah, it's something that we talk about indirectly a lot, but it came to we thought about it in just the process of coming up with this. Like we have to have more overt conversations about this because it's so important.
No, it's definitely, and you have to ask, you know, if tomorrow, you know, Allah chooses to call me back, what will people say about me?
Yep.
What will exist once I'm gone? And it doesn't have to necessarily have your name on it, right? You know, like for instance, the free clinic that I helped to open, we named it after one of our local civil rights heroes and Sister Clara Muhammad. So it's called the Clara Community Health Center, but it's in honor of our 2 Claras, as my dad always says. You know, we benefited from both of these women who were educators, who left their own legacy. Like there's still schools, of course, Sister Clara Muhammad schools, but the schools that Clara Looper taught at are still exist, and the teachers that she trained are still teaching. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be your name on it for you to have this legacy that keeps getting passed down. And so, you know, that's why we thought, well, we're going to honor them with a free health center, you know, and, you know, inshallah, as time goes on, people will see the need to keep it up, to make it bigger, to expand upon it, because they know that they're honoring, you know, the legacy of 2 great women. And so we would have to be intentional about what we're doing, not about us necessarily, you know, what are we doing?
And that's what I was just about to say, is being very intentional and purposeful about everything that you're doing. Like what, you know, and in our religion, you know, in Islam, we're taught that everything starts with intention. So if you're intentional with what you're doing, everything, the decisions that you make, who you connect with, who, you know, what the end result is, it's with intention and it's with a purpose that you're doing. And I think when you move that way, you know, like even when I think of when I started Jessica Cares, you know, you know, we just incorporated a youth committee. And so the youth committee, now we have girls that are now making decisions of what events and programs we're going to put on, because we want to, you know, stay relevant. And we know that that's going to come from the next generation. You know, what I think is fun, the kids are like, yeah, that's not what we're into. Or, you know, what I think is, you know, they have issues that they're like, no, we want to talk about this. We want to have events that are around this. And it's so important to build that up now at their age, building up leadership skills, team building skills, organizational skills, that they can actually say, I'm part of, again, leaving that legacy. So as Dr. Jahan said, even if it's not a Jessica Cares, if it's a, you know, Aisha Cares, or if it's a Khadija Care, it doesn't matter. It's the next generation saying, you know what, inshallah, you know, Dr. Jahan inspired me, or Sister Jamila or Asia, or, you know, Indola inspired me so much so that I want to keep that going. It may not necessarily be exactly what they did, but they inspired me to do something and keep that legacy going.
Yep.
And I know Sister Jamila's having all those technical difficulties, but alhamdulillah, I was able to work with her with Camp Butterfly Girls organization. There you are, Sister Jamila. I want you to tell them about Camp Butterfly Girls.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, let's get some more information about that.
Oh, I love Camp Butterfly. Every time Camp Butterfly, we have a program or something, it really, like when we talk about legacy, it makes me have that feeling like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that's really what legacy is about. And even if, for example, well, I'm going off topic, but the way that we keep legacy going is we find something that has been established and we pour energy and time into it so that when that first person who did it, when they're long gone, we have poured the energy in it and we get the purpose of it from working in it like you did, Dr. Jahan, so that when that person is gone, we have the essence of that and we can take it to another level. But Camp Butterfly Girls, the way that it was actually started, number one, I have two incredible role models that I used to watch, and they used to always work together. My mother, who was Mariam Shakir, she was a nurturer of children. And she told me when I was coming out of high school that I needed to work with children. But not being so wise then and not listening to our parents, it's like, no, I don't need to work with children. I need to do computer science. But it was not fulfilling. And so,
Right.
it was like, why are you doing that? But also my other role model was Kyria Faiz. And I would hear them on the phone talking about, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and collaborating. And we're going to ask brother so-and-so if he'll do this part. And you do this, Sister Miriam. And like they were strategizing, the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, they really built many legacies.
Oh no, I was so into what she was just saying.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, like Jahan is saying, like Sister Jamila's dope. You know what I mean? Like the things that
There's
she
a lot.
does, yeah, it's
I gotta connect with her.
yeah.
I definitely gotta connect.
Like she, such an honor. She brought me on the board for Camp Butterfly Girls years ago, many years ago when I lived in Atlanta, and so I got to help facilitate talks and workshops, but just see how ingrained in the everything that they're doing for the young ladies and seeing them grow. But I was just gonna say, since you're back, I was also just gonna share, Sister Kyria. I think she kind of changed anyone's life who encountered her. And I met your grandmother. I mean, I met your mother a little bit later. Yeah. Me and Kiana are the same age, and so it was always Kiana's grandmother, right?
Okay.
And so she'd always tell me all these wonderful, beautiful stories about her. And then, of course, got to meet her, but I didn't get to see her as the active worker. But I got to hear all the stories. But I got to work with Sister Kyria, and so it's amazing how. Yeah. When someone can just walk this earth, and you're like, wow, like you are blessed. Like the nur is just pouring out.
Amazing.
There's so many individuals like that. Alhamdulillah. And you just say, well, let me get a little bit closer. Let me see what I can learn or what I can understand.
Let me see. Yes.
It's great. Alhamdulillah. Yes.
And I mean, I've never met you, Sister Jamila, but just listening to you talk, you can hear your mom right now. You can hear the sister that you were just talking about. Like, I'm a convert, so a lot of these stories that I hear, I'm hearing like, oh, I wish I could have met them, or I wish I could have, been raised with them. But I can hear it as you're talking. I can hear them in your voice.
Yeah. And one thing about those two, and Sister Marjorie, may Allah be pleased with her, they never stop. From the moment they step their foot on this planet, they never stop their dedication and service for the pleasure of Allah. Because everything they did, it was for that purpose. And that was the legacy that they left. And when they pass, it's like, if I can just fill those shoes just a little bit, if I can, they left the example for us. So we have so much to strive for, and even though like it may look a little bit different, but the commitment is still the same in terms of our focus. And
I tell you, it's Shaitan. I don't care what nobody say. She is dropping some gems on here, and Shaitan is like, cut. No. She gonna come back because Allah not gonna let that happen.
Get it to the meat or something.
She get going.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sitting up here like a student listening.
It wasn't even that bad no more. I could hear her again, but I guess until she comes back in.
But even in what you're saying, like the legacy, I wasn't raised as a Muslim. I didn't become a Muslim until I was 40 years old. And so when I listened to stories like Dr. Jahan and Jamila and some of the sisters that I met, even my mother-in-law, listening to the stories of all that they did throughout the years, it just is like, subhanAllah, it's just a legacy. And it makes me as a convert, like, I want to do more. So just that dua that I made of Allah, use me. When I hear stories like Sister Jamila's talking about right now, that's that legacy that, like she said, it motivates you to want to lead the next generation of girls with, in spite of everything that's going on, we can still hold on to our deen. We can still hold on to sisterhood. We can still hold on to our goals, because it's, to be Muslim doesn't mean that you can't pursue, your professional goals. You can have that, but everything in balance. So it's beautiful to be able to talk about this, the women from before, so that way they can see they had that balance. They have family, they had jobs, and yet they were still leaving a legacy in their community. Like, they did it all. They was that Renaissance woman. You know what I mean? And so, alhamdulillah, I'm just like, I want. Okay, she's back.
Yeah. So another thing that we talk about
today or something else, but we're gonna keep it moving.
We're gonna keep talking. Yeah. We got kicked out. You getting kicked out. We're gonna keep pushing forward, but
we gotta keep it moving. Yeah.
So one of the things that I even not talked about, as we is, she can't hear me. Can y'all hear me?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. We were talking about in the work, because obvious, you guys have kind of talked about all of the things that you do. You do a lot. You have families, and you have yourself, and you have your profit work and your nonprofit work and all this stuff. Do you ever find, not do you ever find, because that's a silly way to put it, how do you maintain balance in all of these different aspects of work that you do? It's something that I personally have struggled with very much. And I find that maybe the last 2 years, I'm finding a way to balance, but I sometimes definitely feel myself leaning too far, either in one direction or the other. And so I like to see how other women who are very active, like, what do you do to maintain a sense of balance if you're able to? Because one of the sisters that we asked about community, she was like, yeah, we ain't had none. Like, it wasn't space for it. It was work all the time. We were too busy creating institutions and building this and doing that. And there was no balance at all. And that's just what it was. And I was like, oh, that's kind of unfortunate. Like, I don't want to really not have no balance. So how do you guys find that you're able to, or are you able to bring any kind of balance, that work-life balance in the work that you do? Because y'all do a lot. Like, I be looking on Facebook like, dang, they doing that too. She doing this? Y'all them kids?
I don't have a great work-life balance. I'm very, I tell people that all the time. But I think part of the issue is that my work is very pulling, right? So I own my own practice, and I'm literally on call 24/7. And so often my patients will pull me. But more recently, I think I've learned how to say no. do a lot
Yeah.
of things,
That's it.
and
That's an amazing word.
alhamdulillah, that's going well for me. And also, requiring payment for some of the things that I do. So if I'm going to spend this extra time, at least I'm getting paid for it. And then, that makes it a little bit more worthwhile if you're going to utilize my time. But I just came from a vacation. So alhamdulillah, that was probably my way to balance. I took a week off. And I know people are like, it's just a week. That's big for me.
It is big.
It only take 3-4 days, but I actually took an entire week. And I'm taking another week.
Right.
I'm taking another week, and I'm going on the Burgundy Roots retreat in Jamaica, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Yes, yes.
Well deserved, sis.
Right.
Well deserved.
That's what I'm talking about. I need a week in Mexico and then a week in Jamaica. Okay.
Well, I took the kids to Mexico though, so
Right.
I don't want to take my kids to Mexico. I don't want to do that.
I find for me, alhamdulillah, I've been able to find that work-life balance, and it kind of piggybacks off of what Dr. Jahan said, which is I have a cutoff time. When we have a 9 to 5, when we leave work, it's like, okay, we're not doing that. I can't check my emails, or I'll have to wait until tomorrow. Although I work for myself, I've implemented that because I have to make time for my family. I have to make time for my husband. I have to make time for me. So I have literally a to-do list from the time I wake up to the end of the day, and I give each assignment that I'm going to do for the day a time frame. So that way I know this should only take me this amount of time. And so it keeps me on target. So if I'm falling behind, I kind of look like, what's keeping me? Am I on the phone? Am I doing something that's distracting me to keep me? Because I want to have that time at the end of the day to spend with my husband, to spend by myself, to be able to read. So I'm a stickler. And I remember listening to a lecture where they were talking about Imam Nawawi, where he was saying that the one who created the 40 hadith. And one of the things that he said, because he was they remembered him, his legacy was he was a workaholic, like he really worked. And he said, be stingy with your time. Be stingy with your time, meaning make your time count, and don't just throw away time frivolously. So I really, as Dr. Jahan said, we don't know when Allah is going to call us. And people ask me this question all the time. And I'm like, I don't know when my last day is going to be here. So I try to give it my all, because I literally want that the day that I stand before Allah, it's like, Allah, I gave everything. Like I'm empty. I gave everything. And it's either what I did is going to earn your mercy, or it's not. But I gave everything. Like I emptied my cup while I was here. And so I try to just keep a line of that. And at the end of the day, when it's cutoff time, I don't respond to emails until the next day. I don't take phone calls. I let it go to voicemail, because I will, inshallah, I'll call you tomorrow. But this is my time for my husband or my children. Although my children are adults, I still make time for them. When they call me, they still need mom. No matter how old you get, you still need mom when you call her. So I try to make that balance time. And for me, I have little things that I like to do, like my little shows that I like Top Chef, and I want to make time for that stuff. So I have a cutoff time that allows me to, and people know I won't respond until the next day, inshallah.
That's definitely a good way. I'm great about the list. I am not great about sticking to no time frame.
Yeah, you got to, sis. That's how you make that list work.
Sister Jamila, I don't know if you heard what we were what the question was, but we were just talking about the work-life balance thing. So if you wanted to kind of jump in, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it's a couple of things. Travel, and I kind of structure my travel around my work, so that, like, if I do a really big program or something, I'll schedule a vacation or something after. Or the way I actually started facilitating retreats worldwide, I would look at, where's some of the places that I want to go that I've really been, vibing on.
Ooh, a'udhu billah. Really?
And she keeps coming back every time.
Alhamdulillah, I'm glad because we get to hear a little something. We get to hear a little bit more.
Right.
This is so crazy. We have literally not ever had these kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's her. Like, oh. Okay. I think she's back. She's coming back in.
Okay.
We're going to see if we can get her back in. There.
You're back.
Yes. That was hard. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say this really fast. So I have recently started doing more delegation, and I really prayed for God to send me someone who could do things in a way that I would want them done, who had a commitment to our mission, and who would really follow through, because it's very difficult to find people who will actually fill the position like that, in a way where it be satisfactory. So that's the other thing I do. And between those two and my spiritual practice, making time for that first thing in the day, it literally makes everything else so easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting, because when I was in Atlanta and I had my twins, my life was very hectic and I was all over the place. And I had twins. It was very, it was just hard. And Sister Jamila, I will always be indebted to you, because I will never forget. I said, I don't have time to cook healthy meals for my family. And I have to. Like, I'm breastfeeding twins. I'm working. My kids have to be healthy too. When I tell you all, this sister just said, how many people in your family? I'm just, whatever I'm cooking, I'll just cook extra. If I never knew what I was going to eat, I would just send her some money. I come pick up my food. Alhamdulillah, she's an excellent cook, so I never had to worry about that. But, I haven't quite found that person here. But I will always be indebted, because they just helped me so much. And I think that, we as individuals, we have to start looking more at how can we help other people? Because a lot of times, we'll ask people to do things, but are you willing to assist them in other ways? I know that I have a gift, alhamdulillah, that I've been blessed to be able to become a physician. Like, I get that, right? It's not something that was very easy, but alhamdulillah, I was blessed to be able to do that. So I want to use that talent. My sister Asiya said, is Allah, what do you use me, right? So I see the ways that I need to be used, but I also need the help and I need the assistance. Mm-hmm. And so more recently, I've been better at saying, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to do this. This will not continue unless I get assistance from you. And so people are like, oh, I didn't even know you were stressed. You make it seem so seamless.
Yeah.
But it took, and this is me just dropped out, but it took somebody like that before to say, let me help you out a little bit. This isn't hard for me to throw in an extra chicken in the oven. I already did everything else, but it was huge for me. I think I only did it 3 days a week, but that was huge, because
game changing.
We were, healthy. It was from Whole Foods too. Stuff would be like really good, all organic.
It was coming through quality meals.
Right, it wasn't like spaghetti. It was like vegetables, and, like I'm like, oh, subhanAllah.
And if you think about that, Dr. Jahan, I remember growing up, the women in my family, they used to do that for each other. If someone had a baby, if someone just came back from the hospital, the women would actually organize together. On Monday, I'm going to bring food. Tuesday, I'm going to bring, and these are the legacies that we remember. Is it was really community. Even if you had to, stay at someone's house, you're going to spend the weekend over here because, your mom just came from the hospital and she needs a break, or she just had a baby, or whatever it was. And it was really that saying, it took a village, and they really owned that. They really own that. So it's like what you were saying. It's like, well, you need me to cook a meal. You need me to bring this over. You need me to drop your kids off. I'm taking my kids to school. I'll pick them up on the way. It was really that type of community. And I remember, having like our surrogate aunties and uncles that came and took us go roller skating and, with the whole, community. And these were the things that we remember. And I think, we can actually do better at that. I think we do a good job, But I think we could do better at that, and just checking in and just not just asking, do you need my help? Stepping in and actually saying, like, what Dr. Jahan said, you need food. You need me to go to the grocery. And we would actually be sent. My mother would volunteer us. You're going to go to the store for Miss So-and-so and pick up this. This is the list. And that's just what it was. It wasn't even a question.
Yep.
So I think it's the same thing. We have to, incorporate that level of respect for our elders, and that legacy building of they've done so much. That's the least we can do to assist them in, if they're not feeling well or if they're in need.
Yep, that's
Definitely.
so true. That's one of the things that I've talked with my daughters about, not as much in the elderly way, but in even just amongst themselves. Like, at a certain point, you're not being a good friend if you have to be asked by your friend. Like, you gotta step in sometimes, not because your friend is gonna be so proud or whatever, but sometimes you just get so caught up with everything going on, you don't even get a clear frame of thought to say, hey, I need you to do such and such. And so, and that is a part of our legacy. Our people historically took care of each other very much. Like, that is definitely a part of the legacies that we all come from. And sometimes I don't feel like I grew up in like a traditional Black way or African American way, just because we moved so much and we were around so many different things. But then it'll be hearing somebody who I know don't have nothing to do with my upbringing say something like that, and I'm like, oh, that's what we do. It's a part of the culture of being of African descent in this country. It's some stuff that really is a part of that African culture, African heritage, no matter what country, no matter what tribe your people came from, this thing with them. And
but it's definitely, we have to make sure we keep it, we sometimes we just come back to this society and we forget our roots, or not necessarily Eurocentric, and we are people that do and help and care for each other. Because we talk about the West End community often. You can talk about the communities in Cleveland. My husband's father, actually he's moving from Cleveland right now, but he's been there for years and helped start Massage It there. But just in terms of how we can make sure that we don't lose our legacy, our culture, etc., as we get into a society that is demanding more for you to change, but realizing that certain things should never change.
Yep.
And looking out for one another and making sure that we're okay being the background people sometimes. We don't always have to be out front.
Forefront,
it's like, it's okay, to be behind the scenes for many things, especially within our Islamic communities. Because I know when we were at the Atlanta Masjid, with Sisters United, which is not just Atlanta Masjid, but majority of those sisters were there. Like, we would serve homeless under the bridge every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And it was under the banner of Sisters United. It wasn't, well, I do.
Right.
Sisters United.
Yeah.
Y'all out there in the snow? We out there in the snow. And I'm looking at them like, we out here in the snow. And they're like, yes, sister. We out here in the snow.
In the snow.
It built me up, right? It made me realize this is what we do. And just because it's snowing doesn't mean we don't. And if you can't handle it, we'll call so-and-so who can do it for you. Or, whatever the case, like having each other's backs and doing these things. But you see all these women who had all these children. People say, well, how did you have all these kids? It's because the next door neighbor used to keep some of the kids, and that, like, it was a community that used to help with those children. Even though our community here in Oklahoma is very small, we lived right by my aunt. So my mom was able to just send us down. We literally took in a young woman, a Muslim woman, when I was a baby. She lived with us. We had an exchange student from Saudi Arabia. We had a little house too. I'm just like, how do these people fit in our house? But my parents, it was just, that's what you do. Like, this person needs a place to stay, so you take them in. And nowadays we're like, no.
You got to give me 2 week notice.
Right. And I mean, granted, things have changed, but it's just that mentality that our parents had. Many of us are our grandparents. It is lost as generations go by. We're definitely an I, me, my, mine society versus a we, us, our together society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we do that even through Jessica Cares. Alhamdulillah, like when we have, a mom has several daughters and they want to come to the retreat. I mean, obviously we have expenses that have to be, paid. And so we don't put that burden. If a sister really wants to come and she have her daughters, we get on that phone. We start calling, we start, we're like that. Do you remember muscular dystrophy telethon? Like that's what we do. All right, we getting on the phone, go through the cell phone and call, and we get sponsors. We get sponsor a young lady, sponsor, this, because we have to, we have, because someone is not in a position financially to partake in something doesn't mean that as a community as a whole we can't help that child or those young girls to be able to participate in something that is so needed. And so it's beautiful and then when they see the pictures and when they hear the mothers here, like, oh, your daughters can come, it's taken care of, that smile that comes on the face, that's, remembering, as you, Dr. Jahan, remembering, Sister Jamila and what she did for you. It's that kind of stuff. And that's why I said my hope is always that whatever, by the permission of Allah, is that whatever is done through Jessica Cares, that it's just going to inspire the next generation of young girls that are participating in the program to keep that going. And that there are some things, as Dr. Jahan said, that just, we can't afford to lose it. We can't afford to lose it. And we have to keep those type of things going in order for, because it's one thing to tell somebody something, but it's another thing for them to experience it and feel it, because that's what makes the difference. Is I experience someone, reaching out their hand to me versus just someone telling me about it. That's where legacy is built. Legacy is built from seeing, watching, experiencing, feeling, and in order for you to be motivated to say, I'm going to do it for the next, and it's important that we create those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that as women, I was impacted tremendously by the women around me. You know what I mean? Just the amount of work and sacrifice that they put in. I mean, my mother, she was a community mother. I have a lot of community mothers, and I'm thankful for that experience, because as a young boy, it taught me how to respect women, and how significant women are, and how really you can't do anything in a society without women. You know what I mean? And I think that you all have this light about you, that you definitely care, and that you want to make those sacrifices and put in that work to make sure that those seeds are planted to have fruitful lives that you all have directly impacted. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? I'm thankful to be surrounded by women still in our generation that still have that same charisma and courage as the people that I grew up under. And I think society's in good hands. I think that we have to definitely be more intentional on broadcasting ourselves. Like Jahan mentioned, sometimes we tend to like to play the background sometimes. And sometimes, though, you got to push yourself out front to just combat a lot of the stuff that's going on. And that's something I'm learning now. Like, these things are totally like, no, out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean?
Because, you don't want to do it.
Right. Because I like to play the background. Like, doing different things that I do. I don't want IU's name to necessarily be the one doing it. It's a group effort, because it always takes more than one individual to do something.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so I never want the sole credit for anything. But sometimes you have to push that narrative out there. And as we've discovered over just the pandemic, a lot of people we're writing our own stories, right? So that way we can combat some of these narratives that are out there. And I think that that's crucial, you know what I mean? And the women are really at the forefront of that. And I just want to acknowledge that in you all, because I know the work that you all do. And inshallah, it's going to be very impactful for not only the young women that's coming up underneath you, but the men as well, the young boys, so their standard of what a woman is high, you know what I mean? So they don't get no plain Jane. They get a Dr. Jahan or a Sister Asia or an Indola, some women who have some standards and ambition about themselves to be able to carry on these legacies.
I love what you do. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Jahan.
I was just gonna say, definitely. I really appreciate that, and I've learned so much from you, Ayub, and Ndola over the years, especially since you guys got married before me and helped to shape my husband a little bit. Alhamdulillah. But I was just gonna say, it's something that's very weird that I do, and I don't know, probably no one else does this. I don't know, but I'm always writing my obituary.
Yeah, you are different, girl. Because I ain't doing that.
Right? Not physically. Oh no, that's like weird.
But in your mind.
In my mind.
Yeah.
That
I feel you on that.
What would you say?
What are they gonna say?
Like I need for this to be, I need people to say, well, she was a jerk, whatever might be the case. And so in my mind, when I'm thinking of these things, then the next day maybe I need to be a little nicer today. Maybe I need to, just, and it's not just the people who know me the best, because they see me in multifaceted arenas. Right. So they're like, oh, we know you're good. But for the person I meet once, I want to make sure that they also, if they hear that I pass away, they can say,
get a touch of that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I realize some people just have this beautiful, existence and spirit. And that's something some of us actually have to work on. And, that I'm one of those people that I've had to just work on my facial expressions, my mannerisms. I'm a very blunt person. People are like, and I'm like, oh, I can't. Oh, okay. Working on some of those. Alhamdulillah, because my legacy is important to me. And I know that, alhamdulillah, we live this life for the hereafter, but I still want to make sure that generations to come have something positive, inshallah, or shaped by the things or the works that I'm doing or the things that I'm saying. But it's definitely, yes, she was saying internal audit. Well, that's a much better word. Yeah, but
she's a wordsmith,
I know she is a wordsmith.
She got the word thing.
It's out there to help this person, but I actually am hearing it read at my funeral. That's the weird part about it.
It's so amazing that she just said that, because there's a sister in Atlanta that just did a retreat, a virtual retreat, and a face-to-face retreat where, alhamdulillah, I was able to speak as Sister Radia. She asked me, it was a pre-Ramadan workshop, and it was what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about, the 5 before 5. And the one that I took on was, preparing your life before death. Like, what are you doing with your life before your death? Because we know that's the inevitable. And when I started the workshop, I had everybody introduce themselves. I always do introductions because it kind of breaks the ice and everything. And I literally do an icebreaker question. And that was the exact question was, what do you want to be remembered for? And if Allah called you today, what would you actually be remembered for? Because there is a difference. We all strive to want to be remembered somewhere, but it's that self-check, that introspection, like, am I living up to the way I want to be remembered? Am I doing the things now that Allah is giving me life? Am I living up to that intention, that, what it is that I want to be remembered for? And some of the sisters was like, oh, that's a deep question, because a lot of times we don't do the self-introspection. We're just busy doing our day-to-day, but to have to stop and do what Dr. Jahan does, mentally, it's something that we should be doing. We should be doing, because it is that self-check. I don't think we'll always be exactly where we want to be, but if we could say, as I mentioned before, I emptied out everything, I gave it my all, at least I strived, Allah can see that. And Allah says no deed that you do, no matter how small it is, goes unnoticed. So it's like, just to give it your all, and that's legacy. It's like you empty yourself while you're here, while you have life. That every day that Allah wakes, restores your soul, that's a day to be able to leave. What legacy do I want to leave today? What intentional act or deed do I want to do today? Or what intentional saying, even if it's just sending a text message to someone saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. I saw you, or, I saw that post. You look so beautiful. It's all in the details. The details is what leaves those legacies. And it's those small things that no one else sees. But if you just continuously do it on a consistent basis, that's what leave a legacy. Whereas Dr. Jahan said, people who just meet you once, or people, who have been experienced you in their life, all have a consistent thing to say, which is, she was that in my life, or he was that in my life. And I think we just have to, like I mentioned before, just be very intentional about how we're walking on this earth, while we have life.
Yeah. That's all. I mean, I don't even know how to follow that. So I think that that's pretty much everything that we wanted to kind of touch on. And of course, a whole lot of other stuff as well. Alhamdulillah. This was a good one.
Mhm.
Even with all of the issues and kickouts and everything.
I told you we was gonna win again. We was leaving a legacy tonight. Like Shaitan, you gonna try to come, but with Allah's help, we leaving that legacy tonight that you didn't win. You didn't win.
Yeah, that was mortifying when my computer shut off. I was like, oh my God.
You was like, what? Yeah. But with Allah's help, we was able to show Shaitan that's gonna be our legacy. We're gonna keep on stop. What did he say? Can't stop, won't stop.
Right.
But yeah, so thank you ladies again so much. I know y'all are super duper busy, so we don't want to take up too much more of your time. That's it for me. You had anything else?
Nope, just shukran again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Putting this light out to the world, putting this light out to the world, man. Keep shining
Right.
on.
And I look forward to getting to know you and Sister Jamila more. I definitely would love to talk. And yes, this is beautiful. Thank you so much, the Shakurs, for having us on the show.
Yes. Good night, you all. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Wa alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum. That was good. I was like, oops. I was like, was I not supposed to? I do that after every show. I'm like, yes, we did that. And then I'm like, oops, it's still on. I can't help myself.
It's part of the process. You be like,
we got through that, especially this last one with all the technical difficulty. Alhamdulillah.
It's definitely something that we haven't had too many issues with, and so this one
we still live.
We are. I feel like it's part of the process.
Okay.
Because one of the reasons that I even wanted to start doing this kind of stuff is because we always see this polished, packaged, very neat thing, and that actually discouraged me from wanting to do anything like this, because I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to put that out there. I don't really talk like this. I don't really look like this. I don't look like this. And I just kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. And when we make mistakes, and that's a part of it. And so we're gonna celebrate on camera sometimes. We're gonna get kicked out.
I'll tell you, you do legacy work enough, you're gonna realize that there's so many hiccups that come along the way, and you just got you work. I always tell the girls, you're either gonna go around it, under it, or through it. But the choice is you're gonna figure out a way, and that's the beauty of being able to just say that tenacity, that resilience is just like, look, there's a way. When there's a will, there's a way. And I'm like, okay, there's technical difficulties or there's this, and sometimes I have a backup. Like when we do our retreats, I'm like, if there's somebody that can't show up, I got a workshop. You know what I'm saying? That I can just plug in the event somebody doesn't, because it does happen. It does happen, and it's just, that's life. You just got to make it do what it do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps that I don't get embarrassed too easily, because in the past I would have been hot and sweating and panicking.
Yeah.
Oh, we got kicked out. Let's restart the computer. Let's figure this.
That's what I said. You do this work enough, you're like, oh well, let's just get back. Let's log back on. Right.
But that's it though.
So much, brother and sister, keep doing the work that you're doing. You can see your legacy being built. As I watch your girls, and subhanAllah, it's beautiful to watch. And may Allah continue to keep them on the straight path, and that they may be a testimony for the both of you on the day of judgment. I mean,
that's big goals right there.
Right.
And with that,
Alaikum. All right, you want to close us out?
So you just didn't want to stop talking today, huh?
I felt like with all of the in and outs that happened, when we finally got a steady, no technical difficulty interruption, that's when we kind of got going, but then the time was up. So,
okay.
That's kind of what had happened.
That's what had happened.
At any rate, Thank you guys once again for joining us, for giving of your time, and please follow the sisters that we have on today. They're doing amazing work. They've been doing it. They're going to keep doing it. And, we got to show support to the people that are in the trenches every day doing the work. And not just the sisters we had today, but really everybody that we've had on, all of them through 10 episodes, through all 10 broadcasts in this pre-Ramadan series are doing really unbelievable things. And so yeah, that's it for me. I'm good.
You sure?
I'm tired. I'm good.
All right. Well, until next time.
All right.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Uh-oh.